you have questions, we do have Roger Peterson here, police chief, Greg Martin, the fire chief. We've got the consultants, the engineers, we've got emergency action center. So we've got all the subject matter experts here tonight. So we'll have a short presentation, and then we'll have a lengthy period of questions and answers, and hopefully we'll get all your questions answered tonight. So we'll start out with Greg Martin.
Hi, good evening. Welcome. I'm glad you all came out on such a warm evening. It was kind of funny when you're walking down the street with your kid and it's 5 above and it's not windy. You say, it's not that bad today. It kind of feels like that. But again, I really kudos to Council Member Hickey for calling this meeting, because we were going to get to that typically a little later in the process, but he was getting a lot of questions, so we're very happy to be here tonight and answer everything we can. And if we can't answer something, we'll get you an answer. We'll track you down and get you an answer. Let me talk a little bit about the project first. Before I get too far, though, I want to introduce our design team. Bruce, why don't you introduce everybody in your role?
Hi, folks. My name is Bruce Schwartzman. I'm with DKB Group. We're the architectural engineers on the firm. I'm just one small component of the entire team, but we're the architects on the project. Okay. And then we've also got Bill Tointon here as well with McGhie Betts. Bill is our civil engineer on the project. Hi, Bill.
From the fire department, we have Kurt Kronk. He's our lead on this project. He's our administrative services manager. And Ken Jones is our emergency management director. A little bit about this project. First of all, it's funded by the sales tax extension that all of you voted for, or at least most of you voted for. We get to have all the visitors help us pay for projects in the city, so we're very thankful to have that funding for this project. It's a unique project. It's primarily a fire station, but not just a fire station. We've built space into it for a future 911 center. Chief Peterson is here right now. Our 911 dispatchers, they dispatch law enforcement, police, and county sheriff, as well as all of the fire departments in the county, including Rochester Fire. And they're cramped for space downtown, and so at some point, so we built space, but the center's not equipped, so that's a future planning aspect of this project. More importantly, about 3 years ago, I think it was, 4 years ago, the city took over its own emergency management function. We were in a contract with the county, and we struck out on our own to do our own emergency management. And that's a department that would help coordinate a city response to anything catastrophic, disasters. In our case, blizzards, tornadoes, those types of things. And they will have an emergency operations center in the lower level as part of this project also. The firefighters are coming from the Silver Lake Station, Fire Station 2, and so there's not an increased personnel cost. We're just going to load up the stuff and put them in the rig and drive them up here and put them in the station. Now, the question people always ask me is, well, why me? Why me? And I've been in the fire service for a while, like 32 years, about 18 years as a fire chief, and I built a few fire stations. I always tell people the two toughest things to do when you're a fire chief is, one, try and take a fire station out of a neighborhood, and the second one is try to put one in. And so hopefully we can give you some perspective on that. And I could talk to you for a day on this, but I won't. But the basics of fire station location are, it's about time and it's about coverage. So our response standard is to 90% of the time we want to be there in 4 minutes or less. And so to do that, we have to strategically locate stations. And we use our planning folks, our geographic GIS systems to plot out where those 4-minute polygons are. They're not a circle, they depends on the street and if it's one-way or two-way and speed limits and all those sorts of things. So we endeavor to cover everything we can with a 4-minute profile with some overlap, because our call volume is going up about 7.5% a year. And so you want to have some overlap from that 4-minute profile from another station, because the primary station might be out on a call. But at the same token, you wouldn't, obviously it's common sense, you don't want to have a 4-minute profile right on top of a 4-minute profile, because then you're paying to cover the same ground twice. And it's a bad location. And that's what we're trying to address here. And maybe kind of hard to see this, but this shows our downtown fire stations, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. I'm sorry, this shows our downtown fire station one's area. And that's right here. And you can see that where the current Station 2 is at Silver Lake, a lot of that's covered. Okay, but then geographically, we also have rail lines running through there, so there's a high probability of getting cut off, and I think it could get worse in the future. So our current Station 2 at Silver Lake really doesn't have a 4-minute profile of its own. It's got about a 1-minute area that's close to the station. So all of that is overlapped either by the downtown fire station, the station at 41st Street, and even a little bit on the southern station on the corners. By locating, then we get a little better picture here of just the new station's 2 4-minute area that covers this whole area. Still covers our old territory, and that's overlapped by this existing Station 1 on Broadway and 6th. It also pushes us out into Haverhill Township that we also protect under a contract. So it helps us give a better coverage pattern. And why the 4 minutes? 4 minutes is the same for a medical emergency or a fire. People ask me sometimes, well, I called for an ambulance, why did the fire engine show up? And I say, so you don't die. And they kind of chuckle, but that's really the truth, because our system here is designed to get us on scene. After about 5 minutes from a cardiac arrest, the chances of surviving really statistically drop off the map. The same in a fire. Once you get to that 5-minute point, then you're really getting into not being able to survive that fire if you're inside, or you have very, very significant property damage. So on the medical side, we run a tiered response. Police cars have automatic AEDs in them. We carry those and then go across ambulance. And the paramedics are allowed under standard 8 minutes to get there, because people don't die in the first 4 minutes because they need a paramedic. They die because they're bleeding to death. They can't breathe. You know. They need CPR. And so that's why the time is important to us. So, I mean, little things. We're putting in a new system in this station that will take about 20, maybe 30 seconds off of the dispatching time electronically. And this station is going to dump out of the Viola Road. That'll save us another 20 seconds. So pretty soon, you're saving a minute right there just getting out the door. So those are the types of things we look at. That's why it's critical how we locate and overlap stations. And again, as council members and citizens, you have to decide how much, if we were to cover everything. I mean, I'd love it if we cover the entire community 100% with a 4-mile profile, or 4-minute profile, but we can't afford it. I mean, it's just, so there's kind of a risk-benefit thing there. You also have to look at what's there. If you have a hole in your coverage area and it's a golf course, maybe that's not as critical as a densely populated neighborhood or industrial area. So, but that's our goal, is to get everywhere in 4 minutes or less. With that, I'll probably stop talking, but turn it over to Bruce to talk about the design. But we're excited about it. It's a pleasing design to the eye. I think it's got a lot of high-tech energy savings in there, and got a couple of pieces in there for the neighborhood to utilize. So,
Thank you, Chief.
Bruce.
Again, thanks everybody for coming tonight. We look forward to answering your questions. Just to help orientate everybody to kind of the layout of the station, the way it sits on the site. So here's Viola Road, and then the new station, the front of the station kind of sits just back. It's about 60 feet back from the face. And this indent here is where the fire trucks would actually kind of pull out onto Viola. There's a plan for a new extension road that comes right in line with Viola Heights extension coming across the way, or Viola Heights rather. And the way the station is designed is, and this is kind of current fire station planning, fire trucks exit out onto Viola Road, and then when they come back to the station, they come back this path, and then they kind of come back to the back of the station. So these are considered drive-through bays. The other thing we have here is when you think about the station, this kind of corner that's kind of facing kind of the northeast, it's really kind of the front face of the building. You can see that a little bit in these renderings here. This is kind of that northeast corner, so that what's considered the hose tower, and here's the Viola Road coming across here, here's that Viola Heights extension coming back to the corner. So this space right here is this piece of the building right here, right in front of that area. So that rendering is looking right across at this corner. The overall building is about almost 30, right around 30,000 square feet. And that consists of, like the chief was saying, upper and lower level. So the upper level all consists primarily, it's all fire station. It would be your fire apparatus, your fire truck area for fire support, and then you have the housing, because this is considered a full-time fire department where the firemen live there. So this is more kind of a housing unit for them. Parking for the firefighters is in the back. Really the back of house stuff is kind of on the back side or the back side of the hill. Because of the slope of the site from Viola as it heads back, which is built up 18 feet or so, really it becomes like a walkout basement, if you will, on the back side. So when we talk about that emergency operations center, which also serves as a training room for the firefighters, that is actually below this triangular piece of the building. So when you come around here, again, this parking area to the back that serves that really is kind of on the back. So it's not up and taking a bunch of asphalt towards Viola, but it's actually kind of towards the back of the station. That's the general layout of it. You know, we're landscaping, we're doing a lot of things too, which, you know, the landscape plans to buffer it, but to try to show a nice feel to the neighborhood. The design of the station somewhat played off Station 2. Station 2 is a little bit of an Art Deco style. It's got an angled roofs, it's got some columns in the front. It's kind of a nice, kind of simple building, but it's got some very nice qualities to it. Well, to reflect that and to remember that station, the new station took on some of those same forms. Trying to break it up, you know, designing so difficult sometimes because you can put a big box down, but it looks like a big box. So it's how do you make it look nice? How do you make it complement the neighborhood? And those are things we try to do. And so in this fire station, we felt, and we went through a lot of iterations, and there's some samples of materials of the building, I think, back on some boards in the back. But the idea was to integrate brick and nice metal siding, metal roofs, and things that really are nice, kind of nice quality materials. So the renderings you see in front of it are as close as we can get graphically to the materials that we're planning and the colors of the materials we're planning. That's about from a design standpoint. The hose tower, again, you see this in a lot of communities. The hose tower almost becomes a, you know, it's somewhat like the steeple in a church. I mean, doesn't have the same level of hierarchy, but it's a representation of the community. We look at fire stations as being part of your community, part of every community, and a good neighbor in the community. So a lot of times these hose towers is a nice kind of focal point of that fire station that serves your community. It also serves a very functional purpose because the hoses have to be hung up to dry so they don't get moldy and you don't wear them out quicker and have problems with hoses. So a lot of times these hoses are kind of hung up in that tower, and again, it's an efficient way to dry the hoses. So.
Actually, a couple things to point out there in that front corner. We're building a small conference room. It'll sit right up in here. And if you notice, it's distinct from the firefighter living area. So if the neighborhood Boy Scouts, the soccer club, or the neighborhood group wanted to have a meeting, again, it's have to be a small meeting. I think it's 12, 14 people maybe. To be able to use that room, and it would have access to, you know, bathrooms, drinking fountain, and a 911 phone. And provided if we go out on a call, as long as we shut the doors, the station is then secure. So that's a nice feature for the neighborhood. I've done that in a couple of other stations in my past, and very well received by the neighborhood. But we did try to make it a smaller room. We don't want to spend a lot of money unless we know what the need would be. So
we've also designed a lot of energy efficient type systems into the building. Very high R value envelope windows and roof system to minimize energy costs. We've got it's kind of a hybrid geothermal system. It incorporates ground source heat water wells for the heating system. And again, it's to reduce the overall energy of the building. A lot of the materials are local. When I say local, they're kind of within the Minnesota region. You know, we specifically kind of buy them. It helps to one, encourage the state economy and using local materials. Plus, from an energy standpoint, the leads and sustainability, you know, you're not having to truck in materials from wherever, Kansas City or New York or wherever. You're trying to keep things as local as possible. So there's a lot of energy, and then there's a lot of electrical energy efficiency items in the building as well. With that,
It's a 50-year building also. We're building it to be, the current fire station number 2 was built in 1953. So hoping this station will be around that long.
Looking at your design on the left, we're looking at which side, north, south, east, or west?
This one right here?
Yeah.
It's, let's
Viola
see,
Road,
true,
right?
true north is here, so it's kind of a northwest elevation.
I'm sorry,
This one right here?
the doors are on the,
They're facing Viola.
they're facing Viola. Okay, that's what.
Yes, ma'am.
Any thoughts about incorporating brick on a firehouse? I know out west, when we had storm damage, it was because the bricks came down and the firefighters couldn't get out of their buildings. Has there been any study about that? I mean,
We've never had that issue.
Okay.
We have, the way the building is right now, you know, we've kind of used it to define certain pieces to it. And kind of this entrance section of the building, this kind of more public entrance piece is pretty well wrapped with brick. And again, it's an economical situation. We're trying to be
Right.
appropriate and efficient on how we use it, because brick can be expensive. So we have it there, and then it creates kind of a pillar section as the brick comes through, you know, in front of the apparatus bays, in front of the truck bays, and then wraps again a little bit around the bottom.
this was brick that fell where the fire trucks were coming out, and they could not exit. And so I just didn't know if there was any thought
Well,
on that at all.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables there. I was in the
Right.
Seattle metro area for about 4 years, and in the Pacific Northwest altogether about 16 years, 12 years in the fire service. And, you know, it's an earthquake area, so we paid attention to some of those, but also it has a lot to do, as Bruce is talking about, both worse of this, the codes at the time they were built. And, you know, the incidents that we had there were more trees and things cracking through the back of the bay doors, or those types of things. But
We've got some very competent contractors that have been in on this project, and we're, you know, part of our responsibility and commitment to the city is to be on this project on a regular basis, watching the construction, watching how it goes in, making sure that they're installing it as we see. So I'm right with Kurt, this is gonna be a 50-year building.
I think too with the new codes and stuff, I mean, there's a higher wind load and all of those on the newer structures, but, I mean, nothing's 100% obviously, but
Right.
they're doing our level best. So.
Is the building set back far enough off of Viola for when changes have to be done to Viola Road that there's enough room to put like a island or safe haven zone in there? Because I think that's one of the main concerns is how much the traffic problem is around here. And that looks awful close, like you don't have, at least from that rendering, you don't have enough room to maybe put another lane in or something like that to accommodate the left turns and everything else that will be taking place there.
This rendering, you're almost kind of up on the corner a little
Okay.
bit, but that's a very good question though, because we purposely, if you look where the face of the building is, we purposely allowed this because the plan is to, as part of an overall development, to do a right turn lane. And with that right turn lane is to keep additional width in out in Viola as well for heavy
I'm more concerned about the left turns.
Yeah.
into this
The
direction.
left turns coming off of Viola
Down
Heights
Viola.
and left in both ways, so that there would be a safe haven island type situation, whatever they call it these days, where a person can come out in that middle area and then when they're taking a left, they can go, if there's not gonna be a light there or some kind of traffic
I
area.
think we have our traffic person here, don't we? And George, are you back there?
What's up? So my concern was is
Yeah.
if there's enough room for when, not if, but when Viola Road.
Yeah. Okay, George, you're stuck in here now. We're gonna put to the work.
Well, I can give some of the answer, but I'm hoping that Doug Nelson can give part of the other answer.
Maybe you should introduce yourself first, I'm sorry.
I'm George Calebaugh, I'm the traffic engineer for the city of Rochester. As far as putting in things like the left turn lane, yes, when we upgrade Viola Road, yes, that's something we take a look at. And I think part of the
Both the city and the county, I'm Doug Nelson with the city public works engineering section. And back there against the wall is Kaye Bieniek,
Kaye Bieniek, Olmsted County Public
county
Works.
engineer. This particular roadway, as you know, Viola Road is a county road.
Yeah, it's
From,
been a problem.
yeah. And, it's a challenge, it's a challenging road. And we are jointly looking at it. And jurisdictionally, it's their road now. It will become the city road though at some future date here. As a matter of fact, we've been
working jointly to try to secure some federal funds. We're right now putting in a joint application, we think for the 2019 timeframe. I know that seems a ways out, but in terms of financing projects, it's really not that far away. So right now, we're looking at reconstructing a portion of it, or maybe doing some significant improvements to it, geometrically, traffic-wise, taking all of that into account in the 2019 timeframe.
And you're linked in with the positioning of the building so that there's enough setback to allow for at least 2 more lanes or something like that?
Again, we haven't put any conceptual plans on paper yet,
Okay.
but there appears to be room there to maneuver a variety of different options at this time.
Well,
Again, we
I
haven't,
just want to get it early in the process so that when you're surveying and setting things up, we're thinking about that because, like I said, it's not an if, it's a when.
it is.
I think one thing to add about the traffic for this area too, the existing Viola Road, the traffic volumes out there is on kind of like the hill portion of it. The daily traffic's about 6,700 cars per day right now. As you get closer to East Circle Drive, it gets up to about 8,000. Future forecast, the 20-year forecast, is that you might get a 40 to 50% increase in traffic. So we're talking somewhere between probably 10,000, 12,000 in the 20-year time frame. With that level of traffic, you can make a road, a 2-lane road work,
Yeah.
essentially, but you need to have turn lanes at the intersection. So that's probably the way that we are going to be reconstructing the road when it comes to that point.
So with the previous owners, there was a meeting like this, and there was concern with traffic, and we were told at that time that the traffic light would be going in. That was a single, just same property, a land is going to have 2 businesses and a fire station. Are there plans at this intersection corner to provide traffic light?
The traffic signal isn't going to be going in for the fire station, but we are doing some kind of like preliminary work, putting in the cabinets that we need for a signal system at the Viola Heights and Viola Road intersection. So we
that
are,
we would have it in the future.
yeah, we're
And also
anticipating.
that it has the ability to be interconnected with the one at Circle Drive as well as the ones down there. And then tied to the overall city's traffic management system.
There will be some warning signals installed as part of this project. As you're coming up Viola, kind of down the hillside, up across the other side, there will be warning signals for safety.
Kind of similar to the ones like on Broadway, we have those at Broadway.
Will they be operational in this fire station
Yes.
building?
They'll put a button in the station that'll flash it.
Looking to be operational.
March of 15,
April.
April,
Somewhere
okay.
in there.
February?
No, I just, I know in construction, planning to be done end of March, beginning of April, but then by the time you move everything in and get things set up.
So it's gonna be operational, but in 19, we might be ripping the road out to do some road construction. How is that gonna impact the usability of the fire?
Well, worst case, we'd have to temporarily relocate. However, having Rochester Fires lived through a bunch of these, as well as police and everybody, it slows you down, but you have workaround routes, and some of the roads that are closed are still open to fire engines to get by, and they make provisions for that. And, but yes, it would slow us down if the road gets ripped up, just like everywhere else around town, when they're in road repair, as they say.
Yeah, I live in the Parkwood Hills neighborhood, and frankly, I live pretty close to where this station is going to be put in, very close in fact. And I only heard of this about 4 months ago from a neighbor. I'm surprised that I wasn't notified, because I would have more preliminarily expressed some concerns, largely on the traffic side of things. Having lived in that neighborhood and watched high school kids getting their cars stuck on the telephone pole at the entrance of our neighborhood, and not being able to allow my children to cross the street to go to other neighborhoods coming out of Parkwood Hills, and at peak traffic times, not being able to enter or exit my neighborhood for several minutes And my concern from a fire safety standpoint in the 4-minute coverage is clearing that light, even with changing the signal up at the top of the hill on East Circle Drive and Viola, just clearing the traffic that stops with these newer, inexperienced drivers is going to take, I can't imagine, it's gonna be less than 4 minutes to get that out of there. It is, load, sounds like it's increasing, but especially at those times when school is coming into session and being let out of session, it is extremely busy. We're talking backed up midway down the hill. So this is very concerning from a traffic standpoint. Moreover, we have Jefferson School, which is an autism center down at the bottom of the hill with their playground for the autistic kids on Viola slash 14th Street. You know, so I really do hope that these lights are being coordinated and that, you know, we have some very careful supervision with crossing guards and such, because it just seems really risky to try and cover that heavy population center down by Silver Lake from up here and going down Viola the way it is. Another concern in the snow, I've led events down at Jefferson. There was a Grand Folks Day some years ago where it snowed unexpectedly. And I had all these people who couldn't get up the hill. This was an October day, couldn't get up the hill from Jefferson. They were blocked. They were stuck at our school. So I am concerned about that facet too, with the weather and the steep ditches right now on the slope of the hill. So those are all factors that really concern me about Viola and responding to calls.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, I really, number one, would like to understand why I wasn't notified, so I couldn't have expressed those concerns, considering I live, as the crow flies, probably less than 3 blocks away from where this fire station is being placed. It is literally right in my backyard, and I understand it needs to be there, and we have to have a fire station somewhere, and I can cope with sirens and that kind of change. But having experience living in this neighborhood and these peak times, I'm concerned. So I don't know what can happen now, but I think the people who are asking questions like, what's happening to the road, are asking the right question.
Sure. That's a concern that we've asked too, so.
Well, I think there's a couple areas. Traffic is the number one, and the second is just kind of what your operational policies are with this station. I live right across the street from where that fire station is going in. I have lots of fire trucks going by already. But when there's an emergency at midnight or 3 in the morning, or am I gonna be listening to sirens all the time? What is your policy and how do you make next door to her?
Yeah.
I'm also concerned about that.
I guess there's a 2-part answer, but by state law, if we're responding to an emergency, we're required to have lights and siren on. However, I guess our folks use discretion, because that's noisy for the drivers also. So many times they may get some distance away before they use the sirens. But it's basically based on traffic, state law, time of day, so we do use some discretion. You know, similar situation at any of our stations. As far as the school issue, that's a concern we would share too with the children, although we respond by many different schools all around the city, some fairly routinely. And of course our drivers and our crews are very aware of that and try to be as careful as possible, but yes, that's a concern of ours too.
I kind of wonder, you know, what experience, I mean, I would hope that, you know, you'll be looking into other areas where a fire station has been placed next to a very large high school. Because I think that, you know, we may need to have some special assemblies for our kids to talk about how do you behave. Maybe they're up on it, but from what I've seen, there's some texting going on, there's some inattentiveness going on when they're being, especially when they're being released from school. So, you know, is there some education that needs to happen now that?
It's probably something we could look at. I put a fire station in the Seattle area as part of that project team, and it was very near a major high school in a similar situation. And we didn't have problems other than traffic, you know, in those peak times. But that was before texting was so prevalent, so that's probably a good thought to look at.
I think the question is we all know that it's between 7 and 7:45 is horrible.
6:45
Yeah, and, you know, the traffic many times backs up to Viola Heights Drive, waiting for the light. So let's say at 7:25, you guys can call out, you need to go to Viola Road. What is your action plan?
Well, we have a traffic preemption system that if you see the strobes on the fire engines, and you'll see if you're sitting at an intersection, a lot of times you'll see a white light come on, flashes the other way, and that will, they're set so the direction we're going, they turn green, and that does allow people to empty out. Does it slow us down? Well, sure.
Will you be able to control the Viola Road E-Circle Drive light?
Yes.
From the station?
Not from the station, from the vehicle.
But it's, I mean, when they're pulling out, or even before they pull out, can they be doing that traffic?
Well, it's a line of sight, and I think these guys are probably more expert in the systems. But what it does is it sends a light strobe at a specific frequency, takes a few seconds to sense, and then it initiates it to go to green for
The
us.
traffic will be backed up to your driveway.
Sure. But obviously, we just got to face that direction for it to
Okay,
sense.
but
Yeah.
is it the distance-wise, they can sense it from your driveway at the fire station?
I think the maximum distance on those is about 800 feet,
Well,
but
one of the things that we are,
later you put a button in.
well, not only do we have the button inside for you to activate the flashing lights for the emergency vehicles, as part of what we're doing for the fire station, the emergency vehicle preemption devices, right now, they're only on the signal at E-Circle Drive. As part of the project, we are moving one up closer along Viola Road to the fire station. So there's one going to be closer so that as you come out of the fire station or at the fire station, it will be activated quicker.
So if we're sitting at Viola right here, coming out, facing the church, Viola Heights, we're coming out, how are we gonna get, like, if we're gonna go left? Is there a sensor light, or you're saying it's only the sensor at the four-way, at the corner?
It's the sensor on the fire trucks that will
So help us as neighbors that live right here to go out, what's gonna be at Viola Heights in the station? What's gonna be right there, nothing to start?
Nothing different than what's there now.
Okay,
Again,
that's alarming, that's a
Yeah.
concern.
I guess the key question we have is what kind of traffic studies have been done with the traffic up here? And the number of accidents that already happen at Viola Heights Drive and Viola Road? And what consideration has been done to really assess the traffic needs? As Lisa's talking, when you're coming out of Viola Heights Drive and trying to get to Century in the morning, taking a left turn is taking your life in your hands.
And it's not just Viola Heights, it's the next intersection, well, Northern Valley Drive. Parkwood's got the same,
All
the
the way down
right
to
turn.
Parkwood, we're, you know.
And then let's add the new development across from Century. You've got 46 more lots with no light going in supposedly there. So now you've got more traffic coming into this section. So, I mean, help us understand.
As far as what we've done for traffic studies, we are in the process of a traffic study at the Viola Heights E-Circle Drive intersection, changing the signal timing for that, and coordinating it with a new signal that went in at Rocky Creek Drive. So we are going to be changing some of the signal timing for that location. One of the other things that's happening right now is there are some issues with that signal at Viola Heights Drive. Yeah. That right now, it's on, the signal is on what we call recall essentially. So it's kind of like a fixed time signal. It's not giving the green time according to the demand of traffic on the approaches. Hopefully that will be fixed this spring. We've got some projects, the county's got some projects to change some of the detectors, or actually replace some of the detectors that give that traffic actuation to the signal, so that we can go back to a traffic actuated signal that responds to the demand of traffic. So, which one is it?
the left turn from Circle Drive to Viola,
Yeah,
coming
there's-
this way on Viola, you can set
Some of
there
the
to
other-
two lights.
Yeah, some of the other left turn lanes also have some issues, again, with the detectors that we have here, you gotta replace those. So that's gonna be one thing that comes in. One of the other things we do, yes, we do take a look at traffic accidents, so we have looked at different locations. One of the things that happens at this location is that this is, this road is still a county road, so the city doesn't get involved in terms of what are we gonna do there. So I don't know if Kaye can speak to anything about any of the county plans for this, because we do take a look at it, we do kind of weigh, where are the high crash locations, we try to take a look at them and see what we need to do to them, if we can make some improvements to them. I know from what we did for the past couple of years, like Viola Heights Drive intersection, like Viola wasn't one of the top 10, but one of the ones that did show up would be Viola Road and East Circle Drive intersection. So in terms of what to do to that, again, it's something that we can take a look at and see if there's any safety improvements that we can make to that intersection.
Well, not to make it more complex, but being down at the bottom of the hill, what are you looking at doing with 14 and North Broadway, which seems to be an even bigger bottleneck for emergency vehicles coming down the hill than it is up here? And what is your routing, for example?
Well, we go through that intersection all the time.
Going north?
Yeah, north and south, but mostly north, but.
Yeah, I mean,
Same,
seldom that you come down the hill.
Same traffic preemption system. And again, this is probably his area, but you can adjust the time when it senses the signal from the fire engine, how quickly it changes, and you can.
Sure, but
There were some of those times.
at peak times, you've got a 2-block tailback going on to North Broadway, and you've got nowhere to go. Up here at the top of the hill,
Yep.
you've got 6 lanes.
Yep.
Down there, you've got 1 lane in each direction with a median.
You know, if it's green, it'll empty out, but we have that same problem on 2nd Street Southwest from Highway 52 to 6th Avenue every day.
But I mean,
We
my
have
question
the
is,
same-
of
the
the
system on
highway
6th
engineers, that intersection needs to be improved anyway. What's the plan? And that belongs to the city, so I guess you can't refer it to Kaye. You got it from the state of Minnesota, so it's all your problem now.
Well, Ray, you got a couple council members who you can lobby them for money. Then he'll fix it, right?
Well, no, the state gave the city a whole ton of money to improve North Broadway.
No, just to maintain Broadway,
Yep.
not to do any reconfiguration whatsoever.
We added one signal downtown.
None of that money was for reconfiguration.
Well, what's the plan? I guess is there a plan? An update of that intersection?
There's been a variety of things that have been studied on that North Broadway, all the way from 13th, across the bridge, 14th, up to the next intersection, including Elton Hills Drive. I can't tell you that we've centered on any one particular plan versus another plan at this time. There's just a variety of different things in the mix on that. And as development takes place, especially on the west side there, that will generate some more discussion and the need to do something there. And exactly what, I can't tell you at this time.
And actually, I did suggest to the council person that with that new development going across Broadway, that there was a good time to get some money out of that developer to pay for the changes to the intersection. And he said, oh no, we're gonna get all sorts of money from the state, so.
Who said that?
Well, that was one of the council persons.
Going to bed.
One of the
Not the
things to
current
mention
one in our neighborhood, but.
on traffic along Broadway is we did do a traffic signal retiming project for that. It's been completed, but we haven't implemented.
I was gonna say, it's gotten worse.
Well, hopefully with this new timing plan, especially 14th Street, it should get better. Again, it's something we've done. We have it ready to go and implement. It's been held off.
You get the box dug out of the snow.
Sir, I'd like to get back to the firehouse. Have you guys done, there was a question over here about doing a study on the traffic. Have you guys done a study on a snowy day at 7 o'clock in the morning when it's all backed up and you wanna get out, what's that gonna add to your time? Cause that's where I think you got.
Yeah, well, we haven't added, you haven't done a specific study on that, but that's Minnesota, that's Rochester. I mean, we
Yeah,
have
but
those
that's
days
Minnesota,
where-
Rochester, Snowy Day, that's all Minnesota, but you
Right.
also are on an intersection that backs up with inexperienced drivers in the snow, that you can't even get out of your driveway. You're not gonna get out of that driveway, because it's backed up past the fire station.
Yeah.
I
So that's the
I would
question.
like to understand from the county what you have
I mean, it's
done
gonna delay
or
us.
plan to do
I
with the
mean-
Viola Road.
I mean, we face that with 41st Street from time to time, once in a great while with our country club station. The intersection at Station 1 is a particularly jammed up one. So, you know, we proceed with due caution, we look for an opening. You know, if we can't go anywhere, we don't sit behind someone, lay on the horn and siren, because that's just gonna stress them out more. So, I mean, it's how we train our drivers. You know, we have a very good safety record, our apparatus are equipped with automatic chains and.
So you haven't quantified what it's been?
No, I mean, 'cause, you know, it's sporadic, I guess, with all of our stations, you know. And the same thing with the Century traffic, well, if we have a call during that day, yes, it's gonna probably delay that response some. But day in and day out for the calls that we're trying to cover in this region, we think we're gonna improve our overall response time and service. But
Is there an alternate exit for you?
Yeah, that's my question.
I mean, can you back your trucks out the back way and go down onto Circle Drive?
well, there's no
Are you-
access from this property at Circle Drive at present.
But there is there, I mean, the one drawing, I thought had a plan to do that, right?
Well, the city does not own that, and they're in negotiations with that property owner, so I can't really speak to that, but.
But that may be an alternative later on.
If we're going that direction, yeah, if we were headed south.
I guess I go back to my original concern, because I think the fire station is going to be just, you know, we're gonna accept it, we're gonna work through it, for the most part, I'm not hearing anybody concerned about it. I'm just on the preliminary planning, especially when you have the drop off where do you have it set back far enough to allow for, I'll just say it, you know, 6 lanes there, because there's 4 lanes there now, and by the time you get done, you're probably gonna end up with about a 6-lane area right there, from there to the intersection at Circle Drive, at least. Maybe it's even gonna go down farther, but some kind of setback has to be in the plan right now, so that when you're putting together all the cost estimates, you gotta bring in more fill or whatever, position it a little bit differently.
It was pushed back further than we would typically see.
How many lanes are you allowing for?
That I couldn't answer.
Okay, I guess that would be a question that I would say is because when you bring the backhoes in there and you start digging, it's kind of hard to move that hole, you know, so it would be really good.
Well, we hope that we've drilled some tests.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, because I think, you know, that's one that you're hearing to hear traffic is the real issue, and not get the fire station boxed in, and we're hearing, well, we really can't put in another lane there because the fire station's too close to Viola. I mean, I don't think
I don't
anybody
think it
here
was
wants to
that,
hear that.
what was that?
And Bill, I think you took a look at some of the site civil stuff out there, but I believe there's room for eventual expansion and configuration on Viola. Again, we haven't done a lot of concepts yet for the Viola Road yet, we're just now in the process. But there was, when Bieniek had set that particular facility, on that particular site, that was one of the considerations, was make sure that we've got sufficient space there on Viola.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that somebody has it written down to check.
Right, you asked what we could do now, you know, what we would like to see. I mean, we would like to see that concretely, this was looked into, and here's the plan.
And if we have to wait till 2019 or whatever, then we can discuss maybe moving that up sooner.
Right, maybe those changes to the road need to happen sooner.
Sure.
Or this needs to wait, something, you know, we need to get this time right, because this is a significant traffic issue. And is there, you know, you asked, what else can we do now? I am hearing, you know, that these signals are not gonna change until they sense the fire truck is in the vicinity. Frankly, probably when you get that call, you're gonna wanna hit that button that says, clear out the area in front of the fire station. Let those people go. You don't
We have
want.
the same system with other stations, that's exactly what, when they're walking up to that apparatus, they push that button.
Okay, so that is gonna be, because I didn't understand that to be the
Well,
case
there's
earlier.
two ways on these. There's one is the sensor that, from the transmitter on the fire engine that changes the lights. That's like driving down the road. And then there's one that's gonna be hardwired into the station, similar to our other stations, that when you push the button, it'll put those lights to red above and below that. And then
Do
I
we
think
have
eventually
a
we're gonna
light
tie
for all
that.
that? That's great. I'm really glad to hear that, because I think that will,
Yeah.
I mean.
All of our
my
fire
neighbors
stations have that
didn't
button.
help.
That's very similar out into the future, like our downtown station, where you got the lights that lock up Broadway, and then there's a intersection right there. Now, we don't have the intersection lights there, but I think what they're saying, if I'm understanding the traffic language, is once they've done some preliminary traffic studies, they're gonna continue to study, they're looking at signalizing that.
Are we going to have a signal, are you saying that there is gonna be a signal below the fire station, so going down?
Yeah, once you put a,
There's a warning signal, so.
At for
What's a warning?
those lights will come in with the station.
So it's kind of hard to see, but right here, and this one doesn't show it well, but down in here somewhere, I don't know exactly where it is, are warning signals.
But you're not gonna be able to stop traffic.
Yeah, they turn red. They flash yellow,
So if
day
you're
in and
coming
day
up
out,
the
they go
hill,
to
you
red
see,
when
you see
they
that
push that
light,
button.
you're gonna stop.
Similar to what's on 41st Street right now, for the interstation.
Yeah, yeah. Then we have an additional sensor.
So
on the
that is
engine
one
that
of
goes into the other traffic. That intersection in with that.
So, okay, there's gotta be one here at Viola Heights for us to come out, another stop. 3, 2 on Viola, both directions, and then Viola Heights coming out.
That's where, we got a lot of side towers, yes ma'am.
You know, I think it might be important to look at the feasibility of another exit onto the circle. You know, if you can get an exit there, if, for example, you need to get to RCTC.
Well, we have that in the, a draft, I should say, I don't know how to characterize it, in our development plan, but the city does not own that property right now. Now, they are in negotiations with that.
But eventually, some type of road is probably gonna go in there, if that's
Well, in
retail
the general
development.
development plan, they spec in a road to go here and then back to Circle. But the city doesn't own this little corner down here yet, and they're in negotiations right now, so I don't wanna make the assumption.
But it might be a conversation to have, if indeed.
We're having them right now.
Not even a fire truck, but an emergency vehicle, if they
Yeah,
get
yeah,
out.
we're having those right now, but we don't own the property yet.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
The city does own some of that property along Circle Drive.
yes, they do, right?
So why does it have to go down through this other owner's property? Why can't it
Well,
go on Circle Drive?
I don't know how much you want to get into all the details on the project, but it also has to do with the stormwater and sewers, and there's a grant for a Parks Trail, I think that'll come up. I don't know anybody here from Parks, I think that's gonna connect to,
There's a trail that's planned that comes across here.
it's gonna hook into the Quarry Hill system, so there's lots of moving parts there, so it's, you know, all of this together is why the city wants to acquire, not just that corner there, but other portions of that property for sewer.
Nothing to do with safety pulling out on the Circle Drive.
Pardon me?
The reason that it's not going now, pull out on the Circle Drive on the property that's the city owns, it has nothing to do with safety. It has to do with the possibility of these bike paths and things coming in.
It's just overall development.
Yeah, it's overall development plan.
The way the utilities are and everything else to make it all work.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a big picture.
But the big picture is we do want to have a way to go out on the Circle and go south, and we're hopeful they're negotiating on acquiring that property, like it's resolved. I missed something.
What is the truck and other vehicle allocation to this station as distinguished from the Silver Lake station?
It'll be staffed with a single engine. Now, we'll probably have reserve apparatus up here.
Okay, so it'll be the same staffing as the
Same.
current.
Same single engine company at this point. unless we get a whole bunch more call volume or some such thing. Yeah.
What is gonna happen in this emergency operations center? What kind of activity? Is this gonna be like planning activity? Is this gonna be actual like hit the ground activity? What kind of activity?
Well, day in and day out, you won't notice anything. But when we get hit with, I'll let Ken speak to that, we get hit with a big blizzard or a big tornado, their function is to coordinate all of the city response to that disaster. And so we would have people from across the. Pardon me?
It's not like people are gonna be dispatched directly out of there, they're gonna be coming here.
Emergency management is the management, it's not the responding to the calls, if you will. They would, if we had to, let me give you an example, when the tornado hit us in 2010, we had an emergency operations center, kind of a temporary one in City Hall, and out of that, we were able to manage help from work with the county and police and public works and parks, and call extra firefighters and police officers back in, and then document all that, because that ended up being a federally declared disaster, which allows us then to get reimbursed for those types of costs. So that's the type of thing that'll go on. There'll be training sessions there for city staff. There may be training sessions for city staff on things not related to emergency management, because it'll be something we don't want to build a great big space that only gets used the 5 times every 10 years for the big disaster. It's space we can use day in and day out, and then we can rapidly convert it to an emergency operations center.
The room's probably just a little bit bigger than this.
Yeah.
Is that a hardened facility? You moved from the airport, which was
No,
historically a hardened facility, to essentially soft buildings,
Yeah.
so.
This will be
if
hardened.
that gets hit, it will be hardened?
Yeah.
It's, the entire exterior shell is, even though it's got some nice facade to it, it's a block construction. The floor that separates over top of the housing area down to this emergency operations center is a precast plank welded down onto that structure. And then the bar joists again are welded onto the structure. So it's there's different levels of hardening.
Sure.
FEMA has all kinds of, it's not what's considered a FEMA type facility, but it's a hardened facility to support the uses of the station.
So if the building gets hit with a tornado, it will, or?
It depends on the level of tornado. I mean, there's
Yeah, big tornadoes and little tornadoes, yeah.
Exactly, little tornadoes are good. It's a very structurally sound building, but we didn't design it for, I forgot what the
Five.
F5 is.
Yeah, the one we had earlier in 2010 was a 1.
Can you talk a little bit to the lighting that would be around this building?
Let's see, I don't bring the electrical plan with me, but there's not a lot of, we do have there are some pole lights that sit kind of on this back side here to illuminate this area. As part of the requirements for the city, we have to submit what's considered a photometric plan that shows the level of light intensity, and it's the city's guidelines that really control the light dispersion that doesn't bleed out and create kind of bright spots. So, we do have some lights back here, and then the rest of it's primarily some lights on the building to provide some kind of soft wall wash in front of the apparatus bays. There's not a lot on the front of this building, any light that would come out. There's really no light on the front there. There is some light down in the front entrance area, so they'll be, like we're showing here, the indication of some kind of wall sconces that provide some soft light that washes down the wall. Yeah, that's about it. I didn't bring some of that information with me, but there is a kind of a photometric, but it's all very, very low intensity lighting around the site.
It won't be a big bright parking lot look at all.
No, not at all.
Unless you want.
So I want to go back to Viola Road again. So coming out of Viola Heights, what is the plan? Warning lights on Viola Road, both directions there. What's going to be coming out of Viola Heights? Who owns what's going to go there to keep the neighbors safe in and out when those lights, when the station has calls?
Is there currently a stop sign?
There's a stop sign.
I think that goes back to Doug, that at some point they're going to be talking 18,
19.
19.
Yeah, we're gonna do a joint
a signal
city
like that
county
intersection.
project.
What
But
Lisa
so,
asked.
so there's nothing at the
covered
moment that's gonna
Viola.
tell you.
I've missed your question.
You've covered Viola Road with warning lights going to and from in front of the fire station.
Yes.
What about the neighborhood across, the stop sign at Viola Heights, the intersection there?
How are you
What are you gonna do controlling people coming out of there? You're stopping the Viola Road traffic, but you're not, what's the plan for the Viola Heights
Like
neighborhood?
somebody pulling out when we're
Right,
responding, you mean?
right.
Oh,
What's
careful.
the? We have team drivers, I'll
I
just
know.
tell you that.
yeah.
And then my other question is, when the think bank owned this land, Circle Drive, there was talk about taking away the intersection by Quick Trip. Anybody from traffic know, is there discussion? Because of traffic flow congestion, the crossover right across from by the walkover bridge, they were talking about taking that median out. Anybody?
I don't recall specifically that conversation, but of course, we always reserve that right in a 4-lane divided roadway, that if we have safety issues arise, that we close a median and
Okay.
restrict access, the left turning movement.
So that's not, nothing's been brought up about that median?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then could you elaborate, as long as we're talking about traffic in the area, what is the plan with the development of Century and development across from Century with those 46 lots?
Mhm.
What's the traffic plan for that? That all has to be factored into this discussion. You got 46 more homes coming in directly across from Century. Once again, more problems. Is there gonna be a light for those in and out? It's right across from Century's main entrance.
Right, right.
What's
And
the plan?
I don't recall for certain, but I don't believe that's planned to be signalized at the time that the development starts. Anytime, you know, we start to, and we work in partnership with the city of Rochester for our traffic signals, because they have the expertise with staff and such. But there's a set of criteria and then certain, you know, requirements or, I'm trying to think of the word, George, but warrants, have to be met in order to put in a traffic signal. And they can vary off, there's like 8 of them, I believe, 11 for some. And they can vary from, you know, your average daily traffic, to peak hours, 8-hour warrants, you know, some of those kind of things. So in all cases, our intersections, we always monitor those kind of things, particularly when we know there's some of them that are starting to see a lot of traffic, and if it becomes problematic and a safety issue. You know, a couple of the other things that George and Doug brought up. Next summer, we are gonna be doing some work to the turn lanes, the left turn lanes on 22, because we are having some problems with the loop detection and the left turn signals working appropriately. And we actually, we had gotten some quotes last summer to do it, and the prices were just, we couldn't afford it. You know, we didn't have enough resources. So now this year, we'll come in and we'll make sure we've got that, we've budgeted for that. So we'll do those turn lanes this summer and get that signal and those lefts functioning better again, like George mentioned.
Because I know the high school, the administration had to work with the police department because we had the construction that kind of went on here at the beginning of the school year. That was a nightmare. We had a lot of problems just in those few days. So I have grave concerns with the development directly across from the entrance to the high school and no light there. And now we're talking the station. I hate to see we have to have deaths before lights go in. I'm really concerned with the forethought of inexperienced drivers coming out of the high school, the development for the townhomes or the 46 lots, the marketing of who they're marketing. I'm really concerned. I mean, these warrants usually mean there has to be fatalities or grave accidents have to happen before something is done.
That's not actually one of the warrants, no,
Okay,
no.
it's just-
It's volume and it's, you know, like I said, volume in particular, PM and AM peak periods. It's it's the main road, obviously, 2 Viola Road is the main road, and then your side streets. So it depends on side street volume versus your main road volumes. You know, George is more familiar with that than I am, actually being a traffic, but
It's just
all that comes to play.
That Century, I mean, it's gridlocked with the one entrance in and out of there. You got Emerald Hills behind it that they only have one exit out onto the same road. There's a lot of homeowners and now the high school traffic, all that's coming into one road that we're not really monitoring with lights. I mean, we don't like to be stopped at lights all the time, but
And we have that, I'll be honest, we have that issue at a lot of our schools, because it's such a concentrated time, it's such a small window that we experience it, that it's not cost effective to have something functioning there all the time. So we do struggle with that. That's always an issue, particularly at high schools when you've got a large volume and a short window of kids coming in. Yep.
I'm gonna come back to my question though. Have you, or are you planning to do a traffic study from Parkwood Hills to past Century, a current study addressing the volume of traffic?
No.
It's the county's road.
Yeah, no,
They're
yeah, I
in
mean,
charge of that, right?
right, it is our roadway, it is our roadway. The piece from 22 going west will become City of Rochester, and that's what we're working on, the joint project that
I'm
we'll
just
submit
saying,
for
you're
19.
putting a fire station in there now. And,
The city.
and is there been any study, or is there a date for when a study will be done?
I don't believe, and maybe Bill knows that, was a traffic impact report done for the fire station? I don't know that.
The reality is, the fire station does not add much traffic.
Right,
volume.
right.
The fire- Now that the road is-
But it does affect your 4-minute.
It affects everything else around it, but you gotta understand, the firefighters that live there are there. The frequency of in and out of the station is very occasional, it's not that often, so the impact of a station is very, very little. It's the integration of that within the neighborhood, and we see that at stations all over the country.
But it's the combination of the traffic is growing, you heard you say that. It's the inexperienced drivers of Century. It's the peak traffic times that are already a nightmare. It's the number of accidents that do happen right there on Viola Heights Drive and Viola Road.
And it's the addition of the road to service the fire station that's going to allow additional commercial development that will increase the traffic. So this is the prime time to be looking at that. That road going in is the road that will be servicing the additional commercial property that's in there, and that's the concern. I mean, I agree, the fire station, we've got a few fire trucks, but it's not gonna be a huge volume, and, firefighters coming and going to their work isn't gonna be the traffic volume we're concerned about. It's them being able to get onto Viola Road without understanding what the traffic really is on Viola. If you haven't done a traffic study, I have no confidence that you have ever really seen that's been backed up to Parkwood Hills. And if you haven't seen it, you really don't know what your response time is going to be from this station. And I'm concerned with the additional commercial property that you're now enabling to go into that area. Again, when Think Bank owned this, we were promised that as soon as commercial development went in there, i.e. Think Bank, we were going to have traffic lights put in. And now I'm hearing 2019, so are you telling the commercial property people they
I
can't
think
go
what-
until 2019?
I think what Doug was saying was that they were slated for 2019. Now that, I
They were
assume that would be
asking for
moved up.
money for
If-
that.
If there is commercial development, I believe the city, planning department is my expertise, but they assess those, part of the fees for that over the according to the development, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
What
So
I
if there were
was-
commercial development, you'd have that signal before 19.
I was told at the city planning and zoning meeting last month that when this general development's going to the city council on March 17th for final approval, it's already been approved by the planning and zoning committee. That they're not changing the zoning, it's B1 commercial. So B1 just means restricted hours from like midnight to 6 a.m. But any retail, office, convenience store, etc. is approved in B1. And once the city council approves this general development plan, as long as someone who wants to move in there meets the defined B1 zoning, they can go build. That's when they can get the permits and stuff in the city. There are no further public meetings required for someone to say, I want to buy the property next to the fire station and build my office building or something like that.
I think what you're saying is true. One of the things that's gonna happen, why there hasn't been a traffic study so far is we don't know what's going in there. Once they start determining what's gonna go in there, that can generate the traffic, is a traffic impact report essentially. What that traffic impact report looks at is how much traffic is that gonna generate? What improvements do you need to the access roads like Viola Road? What you need to do to the intersections along there. will you need to put a signal at the Viola Heights Drive, Viola Road intersection? Those are the types of things that will come along with that traffic impact report. But until a development actually comes about, that we know exactly what's going to go in there, there isn't anything that we do with it.
Right, but I think what you're hearing is the neighborhood believes that that intersection already should qualify for a light before anything else goes in. You're adding the fire station, which adds the emergency vehicle situation to an already tough situation. And you're saying you're not even studying the traffic. You have no plans to study this traffic for some number of years until some commercial business wants to go in there.
And part of the reason behind that is what we see for traffic on there now. When Kaye was talking about the signal warrants that you have for this, in order to have a signal justified on a road, kind of like the rule of thumb number that you need to have on that is about 12,000 cars a day. Before you meet any of the criteria, you're going to say that the signal's justified there. Again, right now, you've got traffic volumes about 6,700 on the lower section, maybe 8,000 on the upper, so you're somewhere in between that 6,000 to 8,000 range. So you're not going to have enough traffic, essentially, to justify putting in a signal now. Again, sometime down the road, when we're thinking it might get to 12,000, we might be looking at a signal at that intersection sometime in the future.
I have a question for Mark. Is what she said true, that if you guys approve the commercial development there, anything can go in immediately as long as
it meets the zoning. So the only time we'll come back.
So if McDonald's and a Burger King and 4 fast food places want to go in there, our traffic could go from 6,000 to 12,000 overnight with no traffic study, no nothing, right?
No.
Yeah, traffic study. That would generate the traffic study.
But it's after it's already built.
No.
That's part of the.
Okay, so then what she said isn't true, it can't just go in.
So it won't come before the city council again if it doesn't require a zoning change.
But it's, she said it doesn't require a zoning change. So what prevents a business from going in there that has an extremely high volume of traffic and not having it, and making sure that there's a study before it goes in?
So I don't know, it's part of the permitting process, I don't know if we can talk to that.
Site development plan, each business has to have a site development plan.
Okay, so it's not true that something can just go in there right away?
They could go in.
It doesn't come
if
before the
it's,
city council.
yeah, if it's consistent with the B1 zoning criteria, and then as part of that permit process, they would, traffic folks would look at it and say, well, what kind of business is this? How many trips are you gonna generate? A trip is going in and coming out.
Yeah, so before it's approved.
And then if it looks like there's gonna be a bunch, and then they say, well, we need a signal there, and then they would assess that business, part of the cost of that, and then the next business is that typically how that goes.
But that would all be handled like in the permitting process.
Sure.
It would not come to the planning and zoning committee?
Some site plans do go before planning and zoning, depends on intensity of use. Most of the B1s probably won't reach that intensity level, so there'll be a staff approval, but there still is a section in ordinance, 61-520, which regulates traffic. And each site plan will be evaluated in terms of traffic generation. That'll occur as actual uses are known. Today, we couldn't tell you what might locate on there, but as these applications come in, they'll have to apply for site development plan. Site development plan could trigger the traffic impact report for that use.
Just one additional thing, and it's very hard to cross as a pedestrian, across Viola Road. Will these lights that will go in for the fire station have a push button to push it to stop to cross the road?
I don't believe so. We don't have that in other places.
Well,
Downtown.
the bike path is intended to go through there. And, there really is no pedestrian crossing with any kind of light.
Yeah, I think the bike goes in a dead end there, as I recall it.
The trail goes through the signals that.
There's no sidewalk on the southeast, on the southeast side of Viola anyway, so you're running across or going to somebody's boulevard, so.
So that's kind of a point in promoting this new bike path for neighbors to use, but there's not a safe way for us to get to it. There's not the sidewalks on the side of the fire station, and there's not a way to cross by all of this.
Part of that bike path project, we will install sidewalks and paths to the signal system at the Circle Drive.
At the corner of Circle Drive.
That's
But
right.
how about like along Viola, in front of the station, there's no,
That there is plans to put a sidewalk or bike path all the way out to the corner.
all the way up.
To the court.
But can you cross with a signal of walking or with a bike at Viola Road and East Circle Drive?
Okay, you Circle Drive and
Can you go across Viola Road with a signal?
I believe there are,
So the only
not
place,
on all the crossings, but I believe there's at least one across Viola Road.
Yeah, Parkwood.
Are you talking about a walk signal, you mean? or-
Yeah, they don't know.
I think there's one, I think there's
Okay,
one
that's probably
crossing,
yes.
I'm not sure which direction, doesn't have the pedestrian push buttons. I think, I wanna say it's across East Circle Drive. but I'm not positive.
That one
That one has
The south leg?
North side of the.
The northwest gas is going across.
The north side does, and I wanna say Viola Road also has them across there, but I don't think the south leg has pedestrian.
There is nowhere to go.
You go into a ditch.
Yep, right now there isn't one.
That's it. That's the only place there's a sidewalk.
So is there a process that would integrate the traffic system here with the fire department? I mean, so that we get to look at this thing as a whole, I guess that's the question. You know, right now, you gotta be happy that we're really not complaining about the fire station. But I think what's happened is your fire station is found and added to a traffic problem that's up here. And we wanna make sure that everything is planned for it.
Well,
And it would be best to have it integrated together rather than say, okay, we're gonna put the fire station in and then we'll hit all these other pieces as we can. More of a plan, a longer term plan.
well,
Can I add to this comment?
sure.
I have lived in my home for 20 years, and I moved into my house prior to Century High School being built. But the school district was already looking at that property for a high school. And some of the other neighbors can add to my remark, but the high school was built, there was a four-way stop sign. There was not stoplights. And every single morning, my husband and I would wake up and look at each other and just wondered when we were gonna start hearing the screeching tires and the crunching of metal. And now the city and the county had to have known that the school district was looking to build a high school there. So I'm sitting here thinking 21 years later, all right, and I want you to know I am not opposed to this fire station. I think it's a great addition to the neighborhood. But 21 years later, can we be proactive in working the traffic instead of waiting until you are there and we have these problems and then you're trying to make a fix?
Well, you're outside of my realm of, that's above my pay grade. We got some council members here that you can lobby. Now, I will say that the volume of traffic that we're adding is not affected. So that's why the signal is going in. And I think that's what our traffic folks are saying is the volume of traffic now, as much as maybe we'd all like to have a traffic signal right there, the volume of traffic now doesn't warrant a signal.
But that whole volume happens in a 2-hour period.
Pardon me?
That whole volume of traffic happens in 2-hour periods, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
problem.
we have a lot of that around the city, quite frankly, and I don't know how you get around that in an urban area. Do we like it? No. But, I mean,
But I think we're concerned about your response times. I mean, you're truly not gonna be a 4-minute response.
well, we're never 4 minutes all the time. Our standard was 90% of the time, 4 minutes or less.
Okay, well, if you have morning calls, it's gonna be a real sketchy 4-minute window for you in this location. And that's a bummer. And I can just echo the sentiments of trying to be proactive about this. I mean, just look at the Northeast Clinic that was put up. I mean, what happened at that corner? You're a fireman. You had the fire department. You had to know about all the times that you had to respond to calls there. I mean, were there multiple deaths there, just one? The light went in after. Do we need to do that here, or can we be proactive with this one? I mean, why I'm not hearing that there was a study done at those peak times about our traffic flow?
They just did, they know what the peak times are.
So it's
No,
8,000
it's
at
a
the
total
peak,
day.
in a total day, or just at the peak
I
time?
don't know, again, that's my expertise, but.
That's a total day. Sorry, you're ahead of me, they're behind me. So,
I'm sorry.
Um,
Yeah.
so, should we be doing a study during the peak time here?
I think the question maybe that I'm hearing is, there's an overall number given that's acceptable for 24 hours, but is there also an hour-by-hour maximum number that's acceptable before a light is needed? And if there isn't, maybe that's something that needs to be happening, because and I don't think 8,000 is happening in the 2-hour window, but there should be, as part of the city planning, there should be something that says, 12,000 cars in 24 hours and no more than 1,000 cars each hour. Something like that really needs to be done, or you end up having accidents and fatalities and that type of thing. Maybe that's the piece that's missing here.
I think some of what goes along with those traffic numbers of 8,000, 6,000, we do know what the peak hours are and how much traffic are in those. And some of the signal warrants are for 8 hours, some are for 4 hours, some are for the peak hours, and they do vary. So like at the peak hour, it might be 1,000 cars during that peak hour that would justify it. And again, even with the school traffic during that time period, it's not getting up to those numbers, again, because
You can't move that fast. You can't get 1,000 cars through there.
Other high school kids give them a chance.
but with those numbers, again, you're not getting even close to being able to do it. And yes, when we did do some studies and took some traffic counts for the East Circle Drive Viola Road intersection, so we know how much is coming in and going out from that side of the intersection. And again, those are not high enough to justify a signal further to the west of that, or further to the west of that along Viola Road. They're just, the numbers just aren't.
That's turning on to Viola from East Circle.
Yeah.
But how about coming up Viola and crossing, or turning, onto?
The amount of traffic like coming off of Viola Heights Drive is that what you're?
Coming up from Jefferson to the light at Viola and East Circle Drive, what kind of traffic volumes are we getting coming up?
Those are like the 6,700 on the hill section, 6,700 per day. That is that section. Again, it gets a little higher as you get towards the East Circle Drive
And that
intersection. It gets up to
6,700,
8,000.
like during that 2-hour window, what is the
No,
volume? That's an average,
That's
right?
all day. That's an all day
Yeah.
number.
When was that study done?
I don't.
Sorry,
I
what year
can't
are
quote
these numbers coming from?
Traffic counts that were done on the road.
What year?
There's,
What year was the traffic count done?
I have to look and see. Within the last 2 to 4 years, there's every 2 to 4 years, there are traffic counts done on the major roads within the city as well as the county. So we have numbers every couple of years essentially on our major roads. But we also did some special counts for retiming the signal lights at East Circle Drive and Viola Road. And those were just done last year. We have those numbers, again, that we can kind of work back from there to see what is going to happen further to the west of it. And again, those numbers they weren't high enough to say that, yes, we should do a a traffic study at the Viola Heights Drive and the road intersection. The numbers just weren't gonna be that high.
But if we do look at the cross-section of like that 2-hour window, it's not even gonna come close.
No, not at that location.
Only in a couple of years when it increases by 50%.
Well, right, when, again, what will drive that, because you do, not only do you need a certain amount of traffic on a major road, you need a certain amount of traffic on a minor road to justify it too. That's where, again, what goes in for that business development is probably what's gonna drive the signal going into that location. You know, if you do get the McDonald's and you get a, Quick Trip and something else in there, yeah, that could be enough that would say, yeah, you're gonna get enough traffic at that intersection that a signal
Do you know
could
if
be
a
justified.
light can be placed at that intersection? Because when we met with Think about buying the property, the phrase we heard at that point was this, the state controls where the traffic lights can go, and Viola Heights Drive was too close to East Circle, and the only light that could be placed would be at Northern Valley. So has the rules changed, or the control of who can decide the lights changed, that changes that?
I'm not sure who gave you that information, because
We had
the distances between
many meetings with
Okay.
Think, and they brought in a whole set of people, and that's what we were told over and over again, is that the rules that it was too close to East Circle.
Like Georgia, the state wouldn't control that because it's
Yeah.
not their roadway,
Right.
So it would fall between, and it's a county roadway, so at this point in time, it'll become a city one, obviously. But there is some truth to that in your spacing of traffic signals too, because you can't have them on top of each other, or you end up with, you don't get the progression that you need either. So I mean, that is certainly a consideration when you start placing
I'm
traffic
saying-
signals.
Do we know if there's any rule that would prevent the stoplight from going on Viola Heights Drive?
I don't think so.
No, again, I think
If the warrants are met.
Is the spacing?
I don't even know how far it is from,
I wanna say
It's probably a function
1,000,
of turn lane.
1,000
In a-
1,200 feet,
that
so
could
I don't think that's gonna be an
Geometric
issue.
more than.
that could be.
And just so you know, right, in the design of the station, there's been multiple conversations about planning for when this will go in.
Yeah, we're assuming it's gonna go at some point. We're putting the conduit in the ground to run the wires to control that corner signal also.
And we've had multiple meetings with various people in public city public works as well as the health, so.
Right, because again, as part of the fire station project, we are planning to put in essentially conduits underneath Viola and Viola Heights Drive for the future traffic signal system, plus also a connection so that we can coordinate the signal at East Circle Drive with this one if it goes in. So that conduit's gotta go in there. So I guess we're thinking that there's the possibility that there's gonna be a signal. So I don't know who was telling you there isn't any.
I'd have to go back and look at my papers.
I also remember that being.
Is there any other questions on the fire station project?
When you start building,
We feel like we're left out here. I should have become a traffic engineer.
when are you hoping to start construction?
The bids will come in, and this is actually an interesting process, because it's not your typical bid, it's considered best value, and the city of Rochester does that with a lot of their projects. The goal is not just to take with the lowest number, actually the goal is also to take a good quality number, as well as a good quality contractor that's gonna provide the city the best product. The bids are due middle of March. There's a review process, and then the goal is to take it in front of the city council, I believe, December. And if the council approves the project to proceed, I would expect within a couple, 3 weeks it'd be mobilized.
You have to wait for the ground to thaw?
August.
By mid-late April, I'm thinking we'll be in.
So you said there's gonna be 911 staff there and
No, not immediately.
stuff in the future. How many staff do you think will be working out of the station when
Well,
it's up to capacity?
Chief, well, they have about 6 on duty now, dispaters.
You mean firefighters or dispatchers?
Well,
Just everybody that's working there.
well,
for the day.
let's maybe take this in chunks. Fire department, there'll be a minimum of 3 firefighters on duty. I'll staff an engine. On some days when we might have 4, but that's pretty rare, normally 3. And then in terms of call volume, it'll be, again, I'm sort of speaking off the top of my head without the stats in front of me, but about 45% of our 9,000 calls come out of downtown. So 40 to 45%, that's pretty typical in most cities. And as I recall, that engine now runs about 1,300 runs. So it'll be somewhere, I want to say, from 1,200 to 1,500 calls a year. So you're looking 2, 3 a day. So.
And those aren't all emergency calls, right?
Well, and then you'd have another couple for training, department business, because we move around a lot to do different training exercises. We have that new training center down at the county on the south end, and there'll be some other engines coming here for classes during the day, those types of sort of routine things. And then if we were to have dispatchers in there, they work a variety of shifts, I guess. So Chief, you can speak to that. How many?
Yeah, we typically staff dispatchers on 12-hour shifts, and when we move to that facility, there'd be 10 to 12 staff people in the building at all times.
So, can I go back then, you said 2 or 3 calls a day from that station?
Probably three emergency calls a day. And again, I'll say that, and then the station will end up being our busiest, but if I can predict when and how many. But I'm seeing just at our stats from last year, and this station will cover some of that same ground, and they're running up this here anyway, a little bit closer. So they'll be covering some of that same ground. So as I recall, I think that engine 2 out of that station was in the 1,200 to 1,300 range.
So 12 to 1,300 divided by your about 3 to 4.
Yeah, and then you'll get peak times, like when we had the blizzard, we actually put 2 extra crews on duty. So then those 3 calls are going to be 15 calls or 20 calls, but that doesn't happen every day.
There's also an enhanced kind of public safety aspect too. Those fire stations, what we do, we have a office in the fire station. Police come to do their reports rather than having to drive back to the main station. So there's a small office in this station as well. So it allows the officer to go out there, do their reports, kind of be there every once in a while. So it does add some additional presence there.
Yeah.
Maybe they can sit on the side of the road and do their
You got the man here, you lobby him to get the radar out.
Just park
Just park the car out in front, that'll slow most of them down.
Maybe put a mannequin in it. But they're in and out of all of our stations, for just to get a break and sit down, write a report, whatever. So.
Do your firefighters do a 24-hour shift?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 3 shifts. They work a rotating 24 averages, so 56 hours a week on an annual basis.
Right. And I think that the staff and the subject matter experts will stay around if you have additional questions. But I just wanted to thank Brent Spencer and the church for letting us use the room. I want to thank the staff and the subject matter experts that came out tonight. And thank you for attending. We'll try to do more of these Ward 5 meetings in the future. I think this was pretty productive. Then I also sent out an email update to the ward. So if you're not getting those now and you're interested, you can sign up. Try to get information out that way through email.
Do you have anything up there?
Yeah, so originally this was supposed to be a combined meeting, and I'm anticipating it might kind of go like this with a lot of questions. I don't want to feel like you're kind of shoehorning something in at the end, because that's an important issue too. So that'll either be April or May, and the chief said he'd be available for that meeting too. And we'll have that as a separate meeting, and I'll send that out as an email notification.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.